Hello, everyone, and welcome to Skills Day number 4. I'm Michael, and I'm going to be leading you through this session. We're going to learn about networking and whiteboarding. All right, if you have not already, please fill out this Do Now. This is just your professional skills reflection form. If you aren't able to find it, go back into your agenda and find a link to this reflection form. And make sure it gets submitted, and make sure you speak to your program manager about your professional skill development so far this year. All right, let's read this objective together. Coders will engage in networking with other professionals. And one vocab word we have here is networking. Okay, so think about these questions to yourself. What makes you nervous about meeting new people? What makes you excited about meeting new people? Think about this question to yourself. So one thing that makes me nervous about meeting new people is that I might say the wrong thing and they might, not like me, or they might think that I'm not smart. So that's one thing I'm always thinking about when I'm meeting new people. What's exciting about meeting new people is you get to make new friends and build new relationships, and they can, potentially offer you something that you've never had before. So we talk about networking this time, and I'm sure you've heard this word before, but what is networking, right? So professional networking allows you to build relationships with individuals or organizations. It may feel uncomfortable, but remember that networking is often mutually beneficial. If either you or your networks are ever in need of anything, you can reach out to each other, right? So if you need anything, you can reach out to someone in your network, or someone needs something from you, they can reach out to you. Networking is super, super, super important when you're looking for a job. Most people don't get their jobs without networking. And the reason for that is because hiring managers have to read hundreds and hundreds of resumes and have to figure out who's the best one really, really quickly. So the best way for your resume to be given a second look is by getting someone to recommend you, all right? And that's why networking is so, so key. So now I want you to think about who is in your network. Who's in your network? All right. So here's a few people who are definitely in your network. Your Codenation volunteer mentors, all right? So your fellowship mentors, and your introduction to web development mentors, your program managers that you've had over the years. Your current and former teachers are part of your network. School faculty that you may have not been taught with, maybe your coach or your counselor or the principal, they're part of your network. Current and former coworkers, so maybe you had an internship or a job, or you have an internship or a job and an apprenticeship. Those people are part of your network, your boss and your coworkers there. Your peers, all right, so the people, there's no way around you because you're watching this in a remote setting, but your peers in your class are part of your network. Your family members are part of your network, so your uncles, your aunts, your dad, grandpa, etc. All right, so those are different people that are part of your network. So you can see you already have a pretty expansive network, okay? So you have a lot of people that you can connect with and get in contact with and talk to them about things you may wonder about or things you may need as you're going on your career path. So think about how you can use your network to get something you needed in the past. How have you used your network to get something you've needed in the past? So I've used networking to get pretty much every job I've gotten so far. So I'll tell you about a different example. I've used my network to help me move. So one of my friends that I taught with a few years ago, a long time ago actually now, He helped me move to my new apartment. So that's something I use my network for, and I would have not been able to do without my network. So how do you network? We keep talking about this networking thing, but how do you do it? I know why it's important, but how do you do it? So here are a few key points. First, you want to make a great first impression. So you want to introduce yourself. Hey, I'm Michael. You know, I work at Code Nation. I do a curriculum and innovation there. You want to make sure that you shake hands with this person, firm handshake, and then you also want to remember their name. How many times have you been in a situation where you know somebody's forgotten your name? It's not a good feeling, right? Remember people's names. You want to make sure that you're asking questions. You're not doing the one talking all the time. So make sure you ask follow-up questions so they know that you're really interested in them and who you are, because you should be, because you're networking with them. And then you also want to tell them about yourselves. Don't spend too much time on yourselves. Make sure it's an equal conversation. But tell them about yourselves, what you're passionate about, what you do on a daily basis, some things that you're proud of, so you get a really get a good sense of who you are. Make sure you're listening to them. Listen, make it obvious that you're listening. Some people like to take notes so they can refer to it later. All right, so if you were in class, we would do the speed networking process, but we won't be able to do this. I encourage you to practice your networking skills in the world as you go through different events and meet new people. So here are some next steps you can continue to do as you go in the world. If you meet someone you'd like to stay in contact with, although you're not in the class right now, you may meet somebody in the world that you want to stay in contact with. Make sure you send them a quick note within 24 hours after meeting them. Just remind them about your conversation, that you enjoy talking to them. Support your online networking with a real human touch if you can. Of course, you have to be safe with COVID. Set up calls, attend live events or online events, and send snail mail notes to people you interact with on LinkedIn. All right. So if you don't know what snail mail is, it's actual real mail. So mail that goes in the mailbox like this. And then utilize your in LinkedIn, all right? You've set up a LinkedIn, make sure you're using it. That's a really key networking tool. That's why we had you make it, all right? So find volunteer organizations and associations you belong to, and make sure you're networking and getting out there. All right, so this is a highlight of one of our companies, Etsy, and one of our awesome volunteers, Allie Jones. Take a look at this and make sure you read it. Okay, now we're going to move on to whiteboarding. Let's read this objective together. Coders will demonstrate independent problem-solving skills and communicate computational thinking through whiteboarding activities. The vocabulary we have here is independent problem-solving, computational thinking, whiteboarding. Okay, so what is whiteboarding, okay? So generally whiteboarding is when you solve problems on a whiteboard with no computer. Right? You're gonna have to use a computer for this, obviously, because you are doing this virtually. In tech, whiteboarding interview is the practice of asking candidates to solve technical questions on a whiteboard, or piece of paper, or computer during the interview. Right? Whiteboarding is not about how well you can code; it's about how well you can think and explain your thinking. So you want to make sure that you're communicating these thoughts in your head. They want to see how you think. So it's a fantastic opportunity if you really use it right. Today's whiteboarding activities will help you with your computational thinking, independent problem solving, and even your communication skills. So what's computational thinking? Computational thinking really allows you to figure out how to solve problems that no one has already taught you how to solve, right? This is a really important tool that you're going to be using for the rest of your life, especially as a coder or someone who works in the tech industry, right? You're going to be presented with problems that you've never been presented with before. You're going to have to figure out how to solve them. In order to do this, you can use a few different tools. All right, we always want to put tools in your tool belt. All right, one is decomposition. So this really means breaking down the problem into smaller pieces. All right. For example, if you are trying to figure out how to drive, all right, you have to figure out how to turn the car on. You have to figure out all the different rules. All right. This is breaking down the problem into different pieces. Pattern matching, finding similarities between things. All right, you do this often in coding. You see a problem. You've seen something like this, like that problem before. You know there's a pattern, all right, and that pattern helps you solve the problem. Abstraction, pulling out specific differences to make one solution work for multiple problems. All right, so you've definitely seen this as you have built your functions in the past. An algorithm's a list of steps that you can follow to finish a task. All right, so think about the steps that you can take to kind of complete a task. So I'm going to do an example right now of whiteboarding. So pay attention to how we're using, or I'm using, my computational thinking to solve the problem in front of me. All right. So here's a few tips as you're whiteboarding, and I'll take into account as I'm whiteboarding these problems. So I'm going to repeat the question, write it down, pause, collect my thoughts, ask questions, think out loud to explain myself, write some pseudocode, write the actual code. If I'm stuck, I'm going to ask you for help, okay? So my prompt is to write the code that will take the value of an input element with the class of username, save it to the variable, user input, and display it on the HTML page when a button with the class of submit is pressed, okay? So let's practice this, okay? So I'm going to pull up a blank screen. All right. My blank screen is being pulled up. Let's get rid of these squiggly lines here once this loads up. So I can't get rid of them. I'm gonna open up a new frame, all right? So I already forgot the question. So what the directions tell me to do, write down the question, all right? So I'm gonna take the question from here. Just give it a second to load. I'm actually gonna copy it so I don't have to write it down myself. But you would be able to write down the question in your own words and the only way you think about it if you were doing this. So here's my task. Write code that will take the value of an input element. All right. So as soon as I see that, I'm starting to think with the class of username. So as soon as I see that, I'm starting to think, okay, I can do some jQuery with this, right? So write code that will take the value of an input element with the class of name. So I'm thinking jQuery right now. Here's my dollar symbol. All right. Here's my selector getting prepared. You got class, right? So I should have a dot here soon. And the class is username. I'm going to write it the text so it's a little bit faster. Dot username. I have dot val here. Save it to the variable user input. All right, so I'm going to try to select this. All right, it's not working for some reason, so Add it here. So let user input equal this. I definitely want to have my semicolon at the end of this line. All right, and display it on the HTML page when a button with the class of submit is pressed. All right, so I'm just gonna write this way. So I know a button with a class of submit is pressed. When that happens, when a button with the class of submit is pressed, then display it on the page. All right, so I'm actually going to change my code a little bit. I'm going to declare this variable here. Get back in here to type. I'm gonna get rid of this right here. Because I'm thinking we're gonna wait to pull the value of the input to the buttons clicked. See, so I read the problem too early. And my eraser is erasing. Okay. And so now I'm gonna take this, get rid of this, because I wanna get the value when the button is clicked. Okay, so back in here, click edit. Okay. So I'm actually going to save user input when the button's clicked. So I'm going to write the same code I had before. And that is username. I get the value, save it to user input, which has been declared above outside the function. Cool. And then display it on the HTML page somewhere. Doesn't say where, so I'm just going to add it to the body. When the button is clicked. Okay? So write the code that will take the value of input element, the class of username, okay, so value, save it to the variable user input, okay, which is declared up here, and display it on HTML page, all right, when a button with the class of submit is pressed, all right? This looks right to me. How does this look to you, everyone? Did I make a mistake? Tell me my mistake. I can't hear you, all right? Okay. So you won't be able to do the independent practice, but you can kind of see how we repeat the question. I repeat the question multiple times, wrote it down, collected my thoughts a few times. I asked questions to myself. I tried to think aloud to explain my thought process. I wrote a little, I didn't write as much pseudocode as I should have, so I need to work on that for sure as I practice how to whiteboard. And I wrote the actual code, and then I asked you for help, and you helped me. And you told me I got it right, I think, hopefully. Okay? All right, that is today's lesson. Have a good day.